Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Audit Governance Standards Committee. My name is Councillor Lynn Henderson and I'm chairing this meeting this evening. In the event of an emergency and the sounding of an alarm, emergency evacuation procedures to leave the chamber by the door and then the staircases at the event of Borough. The councillors and officers are asked to congregate by the statute in the marketplace. And anyone will call them assistant. Please remain in your seats and we'll come back to you. There is free public Wi-Fi or anybody wishing to follow the agenda tonight on the council's website. This meeting is being filmed for live broadcast on the council's YouTube site, and a live version will be available on the website after the meeting finishes. The broadcast will be suspended during any journalist proceedings, and should council consider information as it's in business. Members are reminded that microphones must be switched on and no microphones tonight because we're obviously in room 57. But that's okay. We will speak later. And can you please ensure that your mobile phones are switched on? Okay. So those present this evening are members of the committee, and we also have officers present tonight to come over your reports on compliance during the meeting. I'm not going to go over the table, but I am going to say a very warm welcome to Joanne Lees and Sarah McKean from KPMG. So welcome. Let's see. The first item on the agenda is public questions. No questions were received. Are there any apologies or substitutions?
Both apologies from Councillor Reeve and Councillor Bess. Councillor Woodridge is substituting for Councillor Reeve.
Members are asked to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or any other registrable or non-registrable interest relevant to items on this agenda. Do members have any declarations of interest? No. Can we confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of May 2024 as a correct record?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just copy the sign. The next item on the agenda is item 4, the external audit plan 23-24 report to provide an Annex A of your agenda. And I'd like to invite Rachel to introduce this item. Over to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to give a really brief introduction because really this is KPMG's report. So this sets out the external auditor's plan for the 2023-24 audit of the accounts. So obviously the first report by new auditors, KPMG, so it might be in a slightly different format to what the committee used to from auditing previously, but largely the kind of processes and this is highlighted are similar. But as I say, this is really KPMG's report, so I will hand over to colleagues to talk you through it. But obviously happy to take any questions from the officers point of view as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting us to your meeting tonight. We're absolutely delighted to be here and to meet you as your new external auditors. Whilst we appreciate that your 22-23 accounts aren't yet signed off by Grant Thornton, we have been able to come in and to start our planning and risk assessment work, and we've been able to progress that sufficiently that we can bring an indicative audit plan to you tonight in respect of the council's accounts for 23-24. So just to briefly introduce ourselves, so I'm Jo Lees, I'm the partner from KPMG, so I'll be responsible for signing the accounts, and Sarah is the senior manager on the team. Sarah's just going to give you a few highlights from our report, and then we're very happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Jo. So I will take our paper mostly as read, but just wanted to point out and highlight a few key things. So on page 10 of your pack, which is page 3 of our paper, it has our materiality for the year. So that's calculated at 2% of expenditure. Right now that's calculated using the 2023 accounts, but we'll obviously reassess once the 2024 accounts are available, and we'll communicate to you what that, if there's any change to the materiality. The second thing to highlight is on page 5 of our paper, and it's our significant risk. So these are the areas that we'll be most focused on during our audit. The first is the valuation of land and building. So we'll be looking at buildings that are revalued using DRC method, EUV method, and fair value, and looking at the reports that you get from your external valuer. The second is management override of controls. So that's a presumed risk on any audit, and we usually respond to that by looking at manual journals that meet specific high-risk criteria. The third is the evaluation of post-retirement benefit obligations. So this is specifically around the LGPS scheme and looking at the liability or asset that you have for that. And we've engaged our KPMG actuarial specialists to help us with that work and looking at the assumptions going into it. And finally, expenditure recognition. So we specifically think that will be focused on the completeness of year-end accruals, but we do want to do a bit more year-end risk assessment procedures, just to kind of refine that risk and make sure it's really focused on the specific area. So that is probably the only one that may or may not change as we finalize the risk assessment procedures. The only other thing I really wanted to point out is our timetable. So when we prepared this paper, probably about 2 months ago, we were expecting the prior year audit to be signed. And so you can see a lot of our table is focused on finishing by the 30th of September. Obviously, that's probably a bit unrealistic at this point. So we'll probably plan to bring a progress report to your next September meeting. But I do just want to say, Joe and I are really committed to trying to have a timely and efficient audit this year and get you guys back into the normal cycle of reporting for next year's audit. So that's all the things I really wanted to highlight, and then please take questions.
Do members of the committee have any questions for either Rachel or Joanne? Seriously, or Benjamin?
I've got no silly questions. I know the state of that market.
Yeah. So can I just ask, because it's, you know, we are meeting with the public, just to understand when the 2023 accounts will be completed, Rachel?
Yeah, so obviously can't give you a definitive date, but we're working really closely with Grant Thornton. They have had the vast majority of the information they were outstanding in terms of updating the final sets of accounts for the changes that are agreed with them. There's a few bits that we're still working through that we hope to finalise this week. And then it's a question of them reviewing all that information, checking that everything looks okay. I think they are aiming where we now middle of July, that they should have that done in the next few weeks. So I'd hope signed off. And obviously I will write to the committee and update you with as soon as we do have an opinion.
And in terms of the 2023 report and audited accounts, we do think they've published those.
So we are working along that with that alongside the kind of finishing off 22-23. So we are probably slightly behind where we would like to be, but we're trying to catch up, and actually the work we're doing on 22-23 to finalise that really helps us inform 23-24 to make sure we're more assured of the opening balances than if we'd tried to publish it earlier when we hadn't completed that audit work with Grant Thornton. So hopefully within the next few weeks, but I would rather get us a set of accounts that are accurate than early.
And just a quick question for Sarah and Joanne. Just the value of the money review. When do you think you'll bring that to us? You said you might be in September, or
I think September we'll be able to bring you the VFM risk assessment. And that will determine whether we've identified any significant risks which require additional specific procedures. And the final VFM report will come alongside our final audit report. So we're soon meeting or aiming for the end of this calendar year. We really want to have everything done.
super, thank you. Any questions? Any communities? No, I can. Right, so the committee is asked to look external to the audit plan for 23-24.
Great.
Okay, so thank you. Now that's the end of the external audit. You really want to start, but also you're very welcome to go. Yeah, I think that's something. Thanks a lot. That's a big person.
Well, it's Behind it.
To be in the big room next time you see me.
Like the girls. Well, not there, not there. Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you, bye. Bye. Yes, no, what's the head of the options? Yes. Here, so you said here, they're not here tonight.
Yeah.
It's not my bad. Yes, thank you. That's for us. Okay.
Just a copy of the chair. I'm just a bit.
Well, I was astonished that I don't think you said it. Yes, we can.
Because it's reminding you that,
Complete. Like I was
Just say that being chair.
That's right, yes. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You might see an email. Yeah, yeah.
It is being very light. You see, we're in this room, and it's just seems critical.
Unbelievable.
Right.
Thank God I didn't have it, so it's speech.
Right, the next item on the agenda is item 4, the annual internal audit reports, which you can find at Annex B. Centre. I'm going to invite Andrew to introduce this item. Over to you, Monty.
Madam Chair, I would just like to take a moment to apologise for the formatting of this report. I read it today, it's pretty awful. I think because I usually work in Word, read it back when I keyboard. I think there's some large gaps. It's an auditor thing, I think. It's
the start of the British candidate. It's very refreshing. Thank you.
It is. I'll give a brief overview and I'll have to take any questions. So this is our annual report. It provides a summary of the work that we completed during the year, with the head of internal audit's annual opinion and a statement confirming conformance with the public sector internal audit standards. And in terms of the bits I'd like to highlight, so the opinion has been set out slightly differently this year. So in previous years, there's just been sort of one block overall opinion. And in response to the external quality assessment that was completed last year that recommended that we split that out into separate opinions for risk management, internal control and governance, that's what I've done. My opinion is that the council does have effective reasonable arrangements for risk management, control and governance. And that opinion is predominantly based on the fact that 95% of the assurance work that we completed during the year was a positive opinions. That was either a substantial or reasonable assurance levels. So that was really positive. Table 2, at the top of B4, just gives an overview of the plan. So there were 35 audits in the plan at the beginning of the year. We had 6, there were 11 audits carried forward, merged or cancelled, leaving us up total of 30. We completed 27 pieces of work to final report stage, and there are 3 that are actually still at field work stage, so those were some carried forwards. One of those was a draft. It wasn't at a point where I was comfortable including the report, so that will come to the committee at the next meeting. And of the 21 reports, they gave them, so 21 of the reports, about 27 provided assurance opinion, and 6 of them were advisories where we didn't provide a specific opinion. At table 3 at the bottom of page before moving on to the next page, just set out some of the other activities completed by the auditors during the year, just to give the committee have played with the types of work that we complete other than just all the reports that we report to directly. The trend in audit opinions. So I look at the opinion that I've given this year, and then I look at opinions in previous years. So that's in terms of audit opinions. So that's been a sort of reasonably flat trajectory, with the majority of insurance work completed over the last 3 years, resulting in positive opinions, which is a good job for me to be able to say. Table 5, that's all B7, sets out the overall levels of assurance for the key financial systems that can complete in 23-24, and gives you a sort of snapshot of what we completed over previous years as well, just so you see what we've covered. So the key financial systems audits are completed on a roughly 3-year cyclical basis, with some movement depending on what's going on with the services themselves. And so we completed accounts payable, which was a reasonable assurance opinion, pensions investments, which was reasonable, treasury management, which was substantial, which is really good. That's the highest opinion that we hear, and capital expenditure projects, which was again reasonable. And so satisfied with the council work for the system that produced accounts, the accounts are working well. Table 6, I've listed the audits where we have given priority 1 recommendations. So that was appointees and deputyships, damp and mould, and high waste contracts. And the paragraphs after that give some details around key findings. And the damp and mould audit has been submitted for, so you can see the findings for that one, for appointees and deputyships, and follows contracts, and the audits that you haven't seen the detail of before. Implementation of recommendations. So we, just to remind the committee, that we only follow up on priority 1 recommendations. And all of the recommendations that we made during the year at priority 1 were agreed with management with appropriate implementation plans put in place. And at the end of the year, there were 4 priority 1 recommendations outstanding that had passed their initially agreed due date, and they all related to the audit of Duke's Avenue, which again has been reported to the committee previously. Management have made significant progress on those issues, but some of those were complicated and required complex solutions, and they are still underway. We continue to monitor those and progress updates back. There is a section on achieving children just for your information. I'll include in the report, but that doesn't form part of my opinion. The last section is just performance with the public sector in terms of standards. So I'm satisfied that the team complies, and that assertion is based on the self-assessment that we complete each year, which demonstrated substantial compliance with the standards, and the external assessment I alluded to earlier, which again resulted in an opinion of conformance with the standards by the external assessor. That's all I'm going to say, but happy to take questions. Thank you.
So do members of the committee have any questions for Andrew? Okay, Councillor Gonzalez, I'll put a few days while I'm doing that. I'll let you look. And John, I do a couple. And actually, first of all, let me change the format for report result. It's pretty good, actually. It's snappier, and it's a joy to read, actually. Paragraph 16 about under the appointees and deputyship audit. So 31 people deceased for £600,000. Has that been paid away?
Sorry, has that?
Has that been paid away?
I don't know, Jill, but you're not.
So that activity actually sits within one of my teams. So the date within that we said we'd do that recommendation by was in September. So we're working on that. We'll kind of, it can be quite hard to trace families, some of these individuals. So we're engaging with tracing agents to kind of try and trace the relevant family members for these individuals. For that work is ongoing, but we will obviously keep internal audit updated, and that will kind of feed back into updates through to this committee. But it is certainly we're taking the recommendation seriously and working on it to try and resolve.
And how's the money held? Is it held in segregated account, or is it just
Yeah, so we have separate bank accounts for all of our appointeeship, our clients, to make sure that it is managed as their money and separate from the councils.
On the Devon mold audit, paragraph 1.19, Andrew, how many cases do we have now? I know it spiked at what, 229 something, it's come down to 42 a day. Is it still around that level still?
I'll have to get that figure for you, Chair. So the recommendation was implemented. We were happy that the number had significantly reduced. I guess the reality is that number is changing all the time as new cases are reported. But I can get a figure for you and send that through outside the meeting if you'd like.
Yeah, I think actually council basically mentioned it as well. We should to know that. And then paragraph 122 on the highways contract. There was an interesting point there where you said that you couldn't, you didn't get the information, so you couldn't complete some of the work, but you've still given it a reasonable assurance opinion. How did you manage to get to that point if you couldn't complete the work?
So this was specifically in relation to the works orders. So whilst it is important, we were able to complete significant or sufficient work across the breadth of the audit area to be able to give a reasonable opinion. But that's why it was given a priority one recommendation, because we were unable to say in that particular area whether it was working well or not.
Okay. And just on paragraph 1.24, where you've said 100% have been agreed, so the priority one recommendation 05 out there. The Denver model has been implemented, but also states of the other four, they've been agreed. Is there a mediation plan put in place?
They've been agreed. So they now passed the day when management said they would implement them. There are quite detailed plans in place, and a sort of substantial amount of work has been undertaken so far. But their recommendations that by their nature they take months to do. So there's kind of like project plans in place. They're working through those. So we will continue to monitor that process. That's something that Jill does in quite a lot of detail. And as I say, what that have been accepted or not, as the case may be, but satisfied that they have the right amount of source targets. That's it. So it's just going to take a little bit longer to get to the end of it. I think it was an issue that the audit identified an issue, and when management started dealing with that, it identified other issues that they weren't necessarily, or the scale of the problem grew as they started investigating. So it's significantly larger than initially thought. I think it would be fair to say.
And Duke's Avenue, so these are carryover, really, these priority one items. And I guess reading it looks like it's mainly procedural, but I don't know what you say. Given the priority one recommendations, it's still understanding.
Well, I think given the amount of work and assurance they've doing behind the scenes that they're working hard on providing assurance.
So no individuals at risk or anything like that from these priority one recommendations not being implemented.
I think the fact that the service area are taking it so seriously and gone to great lengths to investigate, take remedial action when necessary. It's much better place than something.
If you'd asked that question when first completed the piece of work, I think our answer would be we couldn't give you that assurance that they were saying because of some of the issues that they've made improvements.
So I will not slide them there.
And just it's something I've possibly talked to you before, Andrew, about, and that's about priority two. Now, I know you don't monitor them, I guess are they checked when you go back in? So if the funds on 3-year cycle, you go back in and look at those priority two recommendations to see if they're closed down or been dealt with. What happens if they're not? Then come back to priority one.
Not necessarily. So every time we make a recommendation, each recommendation is taken on its own, and that's based on the risk that it presents to the council or to the function that we're looking at, or what the potential implications could be. So it's unlikely that we wouldn't just upgrade it to a priority one out, just out as a way to try and get it implemented, we would still consider it. So it may well stay as a priority two, but you're right, each time we go back to look at priority one, two recommendations that were made previously, we would make them again.
Yeah.
If as a result of those control gaps not being closed, something had happened more significant, then we might increase it to priority one. But if no significant issue had arose during the period, we would leave it as a priority two.
And I guess I've talked before about, if we have 10 priority twos, we set become a priority one. So is that something we're thinking about, or?
So the number of priority twos might result in the report being a limited opinion. It wouldn't change the recommendation to priority one, but yeah, so we are alive to the fact that if there are lots of priority twos across lots of objective areas within a particular audit that we're looking at, that could tip the overall opinion into a limited opinion. We would do that if that was required.
No, I was going to ask whether we could have some kind of sight of any priority twos that haven't been addressed, but I don't know if that's particularly interesting. Maybe just changing in 6 months to see. Okay. Yeah. All right. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes.
Councillor Gonzalez, over to you.
I had a question about the appointees and deputyships paragraphs, 1.15. So it's talking about the cost of protection, how the council was missing information in relation to the roles and responsibilities of teams, boarding, etc. I thought that was really concerning, considering how complex the needs of people under that service are and the level of vulnerability. So you've asked some my questions, to be honest, but I just want to double check and understand that the recommendations been agreed. It hasn't been completed yet. And I want to check when the audit was done, roughly, so we know how long it's been and how long they have to complete the action.
Yes, the recommendation was agreed, and there is an implementation plan in place. So it's fairly new.
Yeah, the final report was only issued in May. So it ends towards the end of May, I believe. So yeah, it's a fairly new final report, and the team it's an absolute priority for the team to be working through those recommendations and making sure we're implementing the necessary improvements.
Is there a committee that oversees that service? Should we ask for that to be brought back to us maybe by agent, or is the committee oversees?
We'll bring the update to the next committee on the status of the recommendations at that point. So you will get to see the progress against the recommendations. If they haven't been implemented, we'll report that to you. So you'll
next meeting time.
Yeah.
Is anyone else have any questions? Okay. So we're being asked to note the report on activity. Councillor Gonzalez, okay. So the committee's asked to write the report on the activities of internal audit 23-24 and the head of internal audit's annual opinion on the council's arrangements, risk management, control and governance processes. Are we happy to note that?
Yes.
Yeah, all agree? Okay. So the next item on the agenda is item 6, the annual governance statement report, which we find at Annex C of the agenda. And I'm going to invite Andrew to introduce us. Okay.
I'm going to give a very brief review on this one. So this is an annual report. It's in the same format as it is each time it comes to the committee. So this is a piece of work completed with the assistance of senior leaders within the council. Laurel's the management officer pulls the actual statement together itself, and I complete this a very large report. So the annual governance statement is at Annex 1. It's an honest self-assessment by the council of its governance arrangements across all of its activities, with the statement of actions being taken to address areas of concern or improvement. The assessment showed that there are generally robust controls in place and robust governance arrangements, and there are 2 new actions that have been added, which have gone into the action plan. But those are around the Procurement Act and the scheme of management. The action plan is at Annex 2, and that combines previous actions that haven't been completed yet with an update on where they are, and the new actions from this go have been added on there as well. And that's reviewed by the corporate performance of this board on a quarterly basis, and that comes back to this committee for regular reviews as well to make sure that actions are being taken place as we say they should be. So that's kind of my very quick overview, but myself and I guess Laura that we have. Same question.
So do members of the committee have any questions for Andrew? I just have one, and it's about the achievement for children, paragraph 9. It does say it has robust risk management and internal control systems, but it also has priority one recommendations. So have we reconciled that? It's two issues.
So that was a statement on achieving for children in its entirety. So priority one recommendations are very specific targeted.
And we know that the dedicated schools grant has come off. That's been,
Yes, yeah, that's a good one. So does that mean it's not what would be to say something longer risk or lesser risk?
We're absolutely not saying it's no longer a risk, but we're not saying it's a risk to our governance.
Okay.
And so it's to try and make sure that the annual governance statement is really focusing on the things that may impact on our governance arrangements, rather than things that are obviously a big risk to the organisation as a whole, but not to governance. And so, that's the reason why we've taken it up with the action plan for this year.
one question before I move the recommendation. Okay, so I will now move the recommendation on page C1. That's the billion. Will you second this?
I have to second, yes.
The committee can now debate the report. Do we want to debate the report? I mean, it's a non-construction report, it's a regular government report, sets out how the government council works.
I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? So,
And it is good, so.
yeah, I mean, it's competent, and that's what, one sleeps at night with a degree of competency, and we have that. So yes, it's I can understand it, which is good.
Well, we probably recommend that all councillors read this governance report. On that note, right.
But from it, it's quite clear. It's quite interestingly, it's quite finessely written, because you can see where there needs to be not so much improvement, but you can see where it comes out. Like, for instance, small things like, small things, if you've got a damp optic, things like that, damp and mold. I'm looking at damp and mold, thinking, is that a euphemism for, it's not a euphemism, it's actually damp and mold without properties and things like that. So it's good. It's giving us the right signposts.
Yeah, that's really clear, which is really good. So have we got any to say on this?
No.
Okay. Alrighty, so the committee's asked to note in response to the requirement for a local authority to have in place proper arrangement for the governance of its affairs and to undertake an annual open and honest assessment of its governance framework. The council has undertaken a agreed assessment of the council's corporate governance arrangements. And the committee has asked to resolve that the annual governance statement for 23-24 and Annex 1 is approved formal sign by the leader of the council and the chief executive, and the annual governance statement action plan for 24-25 and Annex 2 is approved and actions taken to date are voted. So can we agree this unanimously, or do members wish to go to the vote? Agreed. Agreed. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is item 7, the Treasury Management Annual Report for 23-24, which is part of Annex D of your agenda. And I'd ask Rachel to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. So this report sets out the Treasury Management outturn position for the 23-24 financial year. Shows the activity on our investment and borrowing remains well within our prudential limits. And as Andrew noted earlier, we had an internal audit during the year which offered substantial assurance on our management activity as well. On the borrowing side, £22 million of what's known as LOBO loans were repaid during the year, and the lenders of those loans exercised their option to increase the rates beyond the prevailing rates at the time. So we did choose to repay those loans at that point rather than increase the rates. One new longer term loan was taken out towards the end of the year. Some shorter term borrowing was taken out at the end of the financial year as well. On investments, our cash balances remained healthy during the year, enabling us to take advantage of kind of rising interest rates during the year to invest that surplus cash and deliver a return. Return obviously helps deliver additional revenue into the council and support council services. It's really quite straightforward. So it is setting out the activity well within the limits. It's nothing really else that I wanted to draw to your attention, but happy to take questions.
So do anything with no questions for Rachel? I have one question and on Alex one, which you've got all your credential indicators and they're well within those. But just on the maturity structure and fixed rate borrowing, and I look back into September, that those, I guess the maturity was, it's got older, but it's more long dated than it was in September 23. So for example, in 12 months, we had 15.4%, now we've got 4.4%. So we need reasonable.
That off the top of my head, I would imagine that's to do with the repayment of those LOBO loans. So whilst those loans have longer term kind of final maturity dates, they will, I think, in this table get counted at the earliest possible call date at which that debt could be recalled. So given that we have them repaid some of those, and that would have been since September, those loans are no longer part of our portfolio.
Has anyone got any questions?
Yeah, I mean, it's all contemporary at the time that, for instance, on the 28th of March, when you're talking about gilts prices were then, they ain't that now. Unfortunately, it is what it is. I think it's a good sort of assessment of state of affairs. Thank you.
Yeah, we're well within of those
Yeah.
indicators. Very important. Anyone else? Any questions?
I suppose I do have, I'm sorry, it's just me being me. I do apologise for me being me. I'm sure Rachel and Laura prepared for this. But it's sort of writing this stuff when it comes to market conditions, inflationary impact, credit, federal open market committees, all this sort of stuff. I'm assuming someone regularly is writing this stuff, and we do have an analyst in the background. We do have someone that, do you know what I mean? We have a little, we're aware that, something could actually, when we're not looking, something to smack us around the back of the head, to use a terrible expression. We've got it all good, it's all great, then something happens.
So our treasury management activity is really well controlled because we recognise the really significant risks in that. So we have, in terms of all our policies and processes, we have a lot of controls within that, which are tested as part of internal audit work. We had substantial assurance on. We also employ treasury management advisors to make sure we get that expert advice on our decision making and have real experts in terms of understanding the market and the wider trends. Because whilst we obviously retain some of that knowledge in house, we can employ the services of a much wider range of analysis and expertise through that contract than we would ever hope to be able to retain within the council staff.
I just asked a rhetorical question because things change so rapidly and so quick, not just on a daily basis. It's extraordinary times we live in. So thank you, it's reassuring. Thank you.
Because you use Link Group, don't we?
We do, yeah.
FCA regulating them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess they are a specialist local authority.
Yeah, they advise authorities. There's only kind of 2 or 3 companies in the market that tend to do that. And so they advise a number of different local authorities, and they have experts that draw on that both understand the markets but also understand the activity of local authorities.
Reassuring.
Solid advice.
So it's specified now, I can't say it. In terms of the debt and external debt, how much of that will be fixed rates?
I was in here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry. I don't know off the top of my head, but the vast majority of it is fixed rate debt. We very rarely take on variable rate debt, and I'm not sure if there's actually any in the portfolio. To be honest, I will double check. I can confirm that back to the committee, but it's low if any. I can get the number in.
So the new debt, we'd be taking out, generally you look to take out fixed rate for a certain period of time, so you wouldn't come out of that. But I guess it depends which way the interest rate's going to go, and fixed rate's been great recently and now maybe not so much. I mean, Is that a policy you could generally stick to as planning advisors, or if you're expecting interest rates to go down, if taking out long-term debt, would be better off going for variable?
So we,
Is that all taken into account already?
so we will always seek advice at the time we're taking out on any new loans. We're not trying to take on borrowing to play the market. You know, we really value certainty quite often in terms of being able to understand that, but it's then recognising that if we are taking fixed rate debt, not to do so, not to try and avoid doing so at the peak of the market if we can. And we've been quite fortunate that actually in recent times when rates have been really high, we haven't really had to take on significant amounts of new debt at all. I think the loan we took out towards the end of last financial year was one of the first we've had in quite a significant period of time. So we have been able to manage our cash flows in order to try and do that, and that's something we do proactively. You know, we won't go and borrow at the peak of the market unless we really had to, and then we will try and manage that in terms of the duration to try and manage our interest costs within that. There might be times where it might be favourable to look at variable rates, but then we carry a greater risk within that, which is why we'll always limit the proportion of our portfolio that would be in variable rate debt to minimise that risk. All of our treasury management activities are all about risk management. So the first thing is always making sure we've got the security of our funds.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, especially government body and public funds, on the side of portion. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So it's for us to note the treaty amendment annual report 23-24 and the council performance within the prudential interest of the state for 2024 is shown in Annex 1. Would you get to note this? Brilliant, thank you. So as there are no action items, that concludes business this evening, and the time is 8:19. And thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right.